One of the everlasting lessons of the Holocaust is how barbaric and savage humans can be to one another. As the Second World War headed towards defeat for the Germans, the Allies and the Red Army would stumble across different concentration camps, which were ruled over by the SS in the name of the Third Reich. What the soldiers who liberated these camps would be greeted with would be a scene of depravity, desperation and hell on earth. Many of these camps had simply been abandoned, with the prisoners being forced to fend for themselves. Corpses would be scattered all over the camps, with death surrounding and around every corner. Following World War II, a number of trials would take place to ensure that those who committed these horrendous acts were held accountable and would face justice. One of these perpetrators was Maria Mandel, who is one of the most notorious guards and officials of the Holocaust, working at Auschwitz Birkenau. It's estimated that she was complicit in the deaths of 500,000 female prisoners inside the camp. Join us today as we look at the justified execution of Maria Mandel, the Beast of Auschwitz. Remember to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Maria Mandel was born in Austria in January 1912. She would become an active member in the Nazi movement within Austria, which at the time was banned. However, following the annexation of Austria, she joined the SS. Being a female member of the group, she would quickly find employment within the regime as a concentration camp guard. She would begin her employment at Lichtenberg, one of the earliest Nazi concentration camps in Saxony. She would work alongside 50 other SS women. Initially the camp held male prisoners, however between 1937 and 1939 it would house females. Many of the male prisoners who went before, political prisoners, were tortured and beaten to death by the SS guards. This savagery would continue as the prison changed to being a women's camp. Many women were beaten to death, and 2 women who tried to escape were ripped to pieces by the dogs on the orders of the camp's commandant. Maria would begin working here in October 1938, and the following year there was further change. Along with the guards and prisoners, Maria Mandel was sent to Ravensbrück concentration camp near to Berlin. This camp had just been set up, and she began to work here as a supervisor on the first day it opened. Ravensbrück was a camp specifically for women, and as the Nazis would conquer more land and territory, the numbers inside the camp would grow. Maria Mandel, from the start of her work as a guard, gained a horrific reputation for immense cruelty. Heinrich Himmler would visit in 1940, and he allowed the guards to use punishment such as flogging. Mandel would often be the one who would dish out the brutal floggings and whippings. This could have been as few as 10 to 25 lashes for less serious offences, however some prisoners were lashed up to 75 times. This was so barbaric that the lashes had to be even given in instalments, as death was a distinct possibility. Mandel was so obsessed with inflicting pain that many of the prisoners had to be revived for their punishment to continue, losing consciousness such was the pain. Bodies would become blue with bruises, and many were afflicted for life. Maria impressed her superiors and was promoted in April 1942, becoming the head supervisor of Auschwitz Birkenau. Birkenau was the extermination camp of the Auschwitz complex, and during the Holocaust and the Final Solution, it was used as the main centre for killing Jews and other minorities, which went against the Nazis' racial laws. She replaced Johanna Langerfeld as the commander of the women's camp, who had previously fallen out with Rudolf Höss. Mandel's intelligence and devotion to the Nazi cause is what led to her promotion. She would preside over the women's camp with terror, and would earn the nickname the Beast. The brutal and horrific punishments and beatings would continue. She would also take part in the selections, playing God with the lives of the prisoners inside Auschwitz. Jews who were not fit enough to work would have been sent straight to the gas chambers in these selections, and it would be Mandel who would decide this. From selection to death would be a mere matter of minutes, and in this way she sent dozens of thousands to their deaths. Many of the female prisoners chosen by Mandel would also have to submit to barbaric, degrading, and often deadly medical experiments carried out by SS doctors such as Josef Mengele. Some of the women selected by Maria would become the test subjects for these experiments. After the war, at her trial, the court would hear of many of these horrific experiments. Testimonies would tell how hundreds of women had been sterilised by X-rays and forcibly had their ovaries removed for further examination before they were sent to their death inside the gas chambers. It would also be told how children were sometimes just left to freeze to death in the winter at the camp, and also how Mandel forced thousands of women to stand to attention in their bare feet in the snow. These women collapsed in the freezing temperature and also suffered from hypothermia. They were then ordered to run back to the barracks, and those who could not do so were sent to their deaths. When hearing this, Mandel responded at trial that she had always cared for the prisoners' well-being. Other accounts would tell how she would have a number of liaisons with large groups at her furnished villa near to Auschwitz. These parties were huge episodes of debauchery and often occurred when Mandel wanted to celebrate after administering torture. Mandel would take part in selections for over 2 years, and it's estimated that 500,000 women and children were sent to their deaths by Mandel's actions in Auschwitz. She would also establish within the camp an orchestra. She was a fan of music, and instead of cleaning toilets and completing horrendous hard labour, a privileged group of women were forced to perform in an orchestra. This consisted of a couple of violins, cello, guitars, accordions and other instruments. The orchestra was even conducted, and they played marches whilst women arrived at the camp. It was said that the women who came back from work exhausted had to march in time to the music. Music was ordered for all occasions, for the addresses of the camp commanders, for the transports, and whenever anyone was hanged. As Auschwitz was liberated by the Red Army, Maria Mandel was nowhere to be found. She had left the camp in late 1944, being assigned to a subcamp of Dachau. With the Allies and the Red Army liberating different camps, exposing the horrors of the Nazi regime, Mandel fled into the mountains of southern Bavaria. She was arrested on the 10th of August 1945 by the US Army and was interrogated. During this process it was found that she was very intelligent and was devoted to her work in the mass extermination of the Jews. She was held at Dachau prison for a period of time and was then handed over to the Polish People's Republic before being tried in the Auschwitz trials. When hearing the testimonies from the sufferers of Mandel's cruelty, she would sit with her head bent. Along with a number of other guards, she was found guilty of the horrendous crimes she had committed within Auschwitz and was sentenced to death as a war criminal. Whilst awaiting her execution, it was said that she did ask for forgiveness for her crimes. On the 28th of January 1948, inside Krakow prison, which had been one of the worst Nazi prisons in Poland, along with 20 other condemned, Maria Mandel was hanged. She was the first of the group to be executed, being female. At 7:09 a.m, the hangings would commence inside of the execution chamber. Maria, along with 4 male prisoners, was made to climb a simple step, then they had the noose placed around their neck. The step was then removed, and the former Auschwitz guard was slowly strangled to death. It was reported that it took 15 minutes for all of the first group, including Maria Mandel, to be certified dead within. Maria Mandel was someone who was familiar with the gallows and executions, and it was fitting that her end would come with the hangman's noose. She was an incredibly brutal and barbaric woman, and would oversee the deaths of almost 500,000 people within Auschwitz. This is a sadistic figure, considering she had a role in sending 500,000 people to their deaths within the gas chambers. She certainly got what was coming to her, and her execution was a justified one. Once again, thank you for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.